Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and this is Welcome to the Wasteland. And this show was originally conceived early 2020, and I was doing this once a month show with my friend Matt, who you might know from the Development Hell podcast, and also who for the past couple years up until this year had been doing our top 10 films of the year list. Unfortunately, because of everything that happened in 2020, Matt really didn't see 10 2020 films that he felt comfortable talking about. But I've had a lot of fun with him, and I had that idea of coming up with another show to do topics. Like we had specifically done a show talking about the state of horror films and what horror films look like and all the different kinds of studios that produce them right now. And I wanted to bring back some kind of show to my channel that isn't my Lost in the Wasteland, where I'm specifically interviewing somebody and trying to do something else where I can take a look at a couple different kinds of things. And that's what Welcome to the Wasteland is going to be. It's going to be semi-weekly. It's not going to be necessarily every single week. It will be at least every other week. I'm going to see how busy I am and if I can get shows out or not, but this is going to be the first one. And basically, I'm breaking the show down into three parts. And it's going to be talking a little bit more in depth for a couple of minutes about a coming attraction for that week that I'm super excited about. I'm going to throw out some other films that are coming out that week as well that I want to at least get some attention, because you never know, there might be some other films and it might be a hard decision for me to make to figure out that one film I want to talk about. And so it'll be coming attractions, and then there'll be a featured film for each week. And I want to start by doing something ambitious and something special to me is looking at the filmography of my favorite filmmakers, the Coen Brothers. So it's going to be Coen's for a little while. We're going to be going through their filmography and starting with their directorial debut, Blood Simple, for this episode. And then we're going to finish things up with some questions, from whether they're questions that I got from Instagram or comments on these videos. So it's important, if you enjoyed this show and want to contribute to future shows, put some questions in the comments that you'd want to see at the next week's show, and I'll incorporate them. For now, I did a little bit of an Instagram posting, didn't get a whole lot. This is brand new, could be expected. So I do have two particular questions I'm going to be answering at the end of the show. But welcome to the Wasteland, and I'm excited to do this. So we're going to get started with the coming attractions for this week. And there's quite a few films on the docket coming out for Friday, February 12th. And taking a look at what's coming out that week, some honorable mentions I'm going to talk deeply about. But you have Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar, and Kristen Wiig. The trailer looked really funny, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's going to be coming out. Land, Robin Wright's directorial debut, so that's something at least that I want to check out. And you have limited release on VOD, Willy's Wonderland. Nick Cage is fighting a bunch of animatronic animals in some kind of fun house, and that just screams, I need to watch this movie. And this was a really tough decision, and I didn't pick Minari to do a little bit more in depth because I feel like that was more of a big 2020 film, but I'm really excited to check it out. It looks like the Philly Film Society is going to be having virtual screenings from February 12th through the 25th. I am excited, and I really want to check it out. But what I'm going to talk about, and this is from Warner Brothers, and it's coming directly to HBO Max with their whole dual release on HBO Max and in theaters, is Judas and the Black Messiah. And what really grabbed my attention about this film is the two leads. And Lakeith Stanfield is a fantastic actor, whether it's smaller roles in, say, Get Out, or it was one of the main characters in the show Atlanta, and also his leading role in Sorry to Bother You. I'm a huge fan of his, and he's a talented actor. Even something like Photograph with Issa Rae, and I really enjoyed that film a lot. He has some great charisma, and Daniel Kaluuya is an amazing actor, whether it's the early season episode of Black Mirror that he was on or Get Out, obviously. And I honestly would have been perfectly fine with him winning Best Actor for that when he was nominated. He carries some emotional heft in that film. In Widows, he's terrifying. So this man can act. And I'm excited because obviously this is a thrilling and intriguing premise as it's focusing on the FBI investigation into Fred Hampton, who is the chair of the Illinois Black Panther Party. And he's being infiltrated by this FBI agent, William O'Neill. So Kahlua is Hartman and Stanfield is O'Neill. I'm not very familiar with Shaka King's work. Shaka King is writing and directing this film, but also Jesse Plemons is in the film. He's great. And hate him in Breaking Bad. He's absolutely hilarious in Game Night. And he's a really talented actor. And the rest of this cast, there's a lot of talent, whether it's Ashton Sanders, who is from Moonlight, or Lil Rel Howery. And then this little bit of casting with Martin Sheen playing J. Edgar Hoover. I like to see some veteran actors like that popping up in some things. And I don't know how big of a role J. Edgar Hoover is going to have in this film, but it's about the FBI. So I'm assuming that he's going to be in there pulling the strings. And this film definitely grabs my attention. And obviously, it's been getting some attention for acting awards so far with the Golden Globes coming out and the SAG Awards coming out, specifically for Daniel Kaluuya. So I'm excited, and I definitely recommend checking this out. Honestly, this is even something that would even just be worth getting the month of HBO Max for, because this seems like a must-see film. And you know what? It's the same price as getting a ticket for a movie, so why not? But those are the coming attractions for the week of February 12th. And now we're going to get into our film of the week. And my hope is to have others on here in the future to actually discuss the films, similar to what I did with the movie club starting on the Development Hell podcast. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see our episode where we talk about Barry Lyndon, very long, in-depth conversation about, do we like Barry Lyndon, that character, Redmond Barry? It was a great time. So I'm hoping that have some guests to talk about these things moving forward, but flying solo on this first episode. And so you're going to get a little bit of in-depth look and thoughts into the directorial debut of the Coen Brothers, Blood Simple. And this is a neo-noir and kind of a neo-western. This is set in Texas, and it's about this man who works at a bar and is having an affair with his boss's wife. And the cast is made up of John Getz, who plays Ray, the man working at the bar. And he's popped up in a few things over time, whether it's The Social Network or Zodiac. But like, this seems to be his main leading role that he had in his career. And then you have Frances McDormand. Very early on, Frances McDormand playing the lead here, this woman who's married to Dan Hidea's character and is having this affair with Getz. And Dan Hidea is a pretty well-known and commonly working character actor. He's popped up in films like The Usual Suspects, Clueless, and Mulholland Drive. The big cast, like the big piece of the cast in this film that I feel like stands out the most is Emmett Walsh, who plays this private investigator, Lauren Visser. And you can tell this film is a Coen Brothers film. You could also tell it's very early and they really haven't found their voice completely yet. And this is from 1984. And Walsh is such a great character actor, whether it's like roles from Blade Runner, or even I remember watching Christmas with the Cranks and him being in it and being a blast in it. Has a very small role in films like The Jerk, but like he's popped up in a lot of things over the course of his career. And he plays probably the most Coen Brothers-y character in this film. And what I mean by that is the Coens, and what I loved so much about them is every character is memorable, no matter how small. And I feel like one of the best example, like actually my two favorite Coen Brothers films, I think are the two best examples of this, and it's their two opposites, is The Big Lebowski, where everybody's a character, everyone, and then No Country for Old Men, where just random characters like the border patrolman or the guy who works at that store is like, how are those boots holding up? When Josh Brolin walks in a medical gown and boots. And that's what he has to say. Or the lady from the trailer park is like, we don't give out that information. And even specifically the probably most memorable minor character in the film, the guy from the convenience store. And just Coen Brothers do that so well in creating characters, and Visser is such a great Coen Brothers character. And Emmett Walsh brings so much personality to him. He has such a look, that like yellow suit, the cowboy hat, those gloves, everything about him just screams, I'm a character, and he's so well realized by Walsh. Now, the story is probably pretty straightforward in terms of, especially for like the Coen brothers, it's pretty standard affair of like affair, bout an affair, jealous husband. Probably what's the most interesting thing about this is the film gets really awkward and violent and messy. And that's what the Coen brothers do so well. Nothing in a Coen brothers movie works out exactly how it's supposed to be. And everybody messes up. And whether it's you have this film where somebody double crosses somebody, people wind up dead, or are they really dead? Did they really finish the job? And then you have this whole entire midsection of the film that builds up such great tension. And going to be spoiling some scenes here. So, but I guess starting before I get ahead of myself into too deep into the film, you start off this film of like these shots of Texas, and you have this voiceover, and you can tell that this film is early Coen Brothers as it sets the stage throughout the film with different things that you'll see and a little bit more developed in future Coen Brothers films. This beginning sequence is so reminiscent of No Country for Old Men. And it's like I just remember watching No Country at the beginning, and you see those shots of Texas and you have Tommy Lee Jones talking over the voiceover. Here you have that same kind of feel. It sets the tone. You know where you're at. This film, you have this relationship. Getz does a solid job in this film. He's not the strongest Coen Brothers lead you're going to find. There have been some great ones. Hell, George Clooney has led Coen Brothers films. Josh Brolin, Tommy Lee Jones, and John Turturro. Barton Fink, such a great performance, and Jeff Bridges. You have John Getz here, he's leading, but really, I feel like the main character here is Frances McDormand, and she gets to do more heavy lifting in the film and emotional heavy lifting. Getz has some more physical moments, but I think they both do a fine job in this film doing their work. And they're more straightforward characters. There isn't like Getz's character is very, very much a Texan, and just like he's just this guy, and he followed his feelings and got involved with this married woman. And Hidea's character is very stern and very quiet, very intense, and very angry. And he plays that so well. That is his character when he pops up in the movies. And you have these tensions between these characters. And this film has some of those early flares of the Coens, similar to when you see like Evil Dead with like the shaky cam of like the deadites flying through like the woods and like running because it's a camera on a 2x4 with people on each end of it running with it. That comes from the Coen brothers. They're friends with Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi pops up in a small role in Miller's Crossing, which I'll get to in a couple weeks. And they have that work, and they work very closely with Barry Sonnenfeld, who is their original DP, who went on to make the Addams Family movies, the Men in Black films, the Netflix series Unfortunate Events, and some not as great films. but he has a very quirky visual look to his films, and you can see that it's in early Coen Brothers films. And he helps with their visuals. Like there's one particular shot in the film when coming out of John Getz's character's home, you have Ray and Abby, who's McDormand's character, is getting dragged out by her husband, and like this camera like rushes up to the front of the door in a very erratic and aggressive way. There's a lot of tension in this scene, and you have those kinds of moments in this film. There's some really strong tension, and you can definitely tell that there's those sparks of the Coens here, especially in the moments where you have dialogue between Hidea's character, Julian Marty, and then you have Emmett Walsh's character. And they have these weird, strange conversations with each other because Walsh's character, Visser, is just such a weird dude. And he stands out. And even just like the littlest thing, like he having like this mermaid hanging from his rear view mirror, and it's just like flashing breaths with it. And it's just like, okay, with like little lights, all those weird quirky things. And he has a very distinct car, so when you see that, you know that he's there. And it's so interesting because there's some twists and turns in the story, because and who's playing who. And you have a lot of kind of stuff like that in Coen Brothers films. It's that messy criminal thing where they're not professional criminals. Like this guy's a private eye, he's not an assassin, and he's weird, he's awkward, and Hide's not like, he doesn't have a career of doing stuff like this, like trying to get his wife and her lover murdered. So like this doesn't play out how it's supposed to play out. And you have Walsh, who his character Visser winds up faking pictures to cash in on Hidea's character and winds up shooting him. That scene is so fantastic because Visser's character is so erratic and such a wild card, because he is somebody who's hot-headed and easily offended and is always on edge. And Marty says one word that gets him mad at him, and he winds up shooting him. And that's such a great scene. And like he puts it in his face, he takes the money. And what happens? Ray comes into the bar and he thinks that Abby killed her husband. So he's like, I have to clean up after this. And so he really messily, not knowing what he's doing, makes this giant mess of trying to dispose of this body and taking him. And those awkwardnesses are so perfect Coens. And then one of the other very strong scenes in this film is he goes out into like the middle of the nowhere on this barren road and tries to take Marty's body out there to bury it. And Ray's really struggling with this. You can see the anxiety on Getz's face. This is probably where Getz is the best in this film, is he's experiencing that anxiety and realizes Marty's not dead. And he's like, crap, he's not dead. And he has to grab him, and like the truck's coming down the road. It's at night, so you can see the headlights getting bigger and bigger. And Ray's like, what am I going to do here? He tries to pick up Marty and get him into the car. He coughs up blood all over him, and just in time for him to avoid the truck, and then he buries Marty alive. And this scene is such a powerful scene and stands out in such a great way in this film, and definitely feels like something that comes out of one of those dark, crime-centered Coen Brothers films. Fargo and because obviously No Country is not an original piece. It's Cormac McCarthy, but there's a lot of visual things that happen in this film that telegraph what you might see in that film. A lot of the story elements in this, the awkward and bad criminal acts of these people who don't know how to be criminals, is so Fargo, and it works so well. And this might not be the most polished, or the performances might not be on the same level as, say, Fargo, but you see those blips, those hints that there's something special with Joel and Ethan Coen. And they write them together, They direct them together. They produce them, even though they switch off names earlier in their career for those. It's a tandem. They're doing this together. The dialogue, the characters, the awkwardness, the great story, the building of tension, it all works so well. And then the climax of this film, where things need to be tied up. Visser wants to get rid of Ray and Abby to tie everything off so he could just get away. Abby and Ray have no idea who this man is. They've never met him. They've never seen him. And the tension of you as the audience knowing everything going on and the characters in the film being so confused on who's really doing what builds such great tension. You're there, it's like, come on, that's not who you think it is. And because they, like, Abby thinks Marty's still coming after them, but Ray knows that he's not. And Ray's afraid of Abby now because he thinks that she killed Marty or tried to kill Marty. And you have this tension, and it's so great and how it's built. And everything, the shots are so particular. And this climax, they're in this dark, big window loft, and Sniper shoots Ray. And Ray's dead, and Abby, of course, thinks it's Marty, and she runs and hides. She can hear through the whole apartment that he's coming. He walks through, and this is such great filmmaking here, because you have Visser with his white glove stick around, puts his hand to the next window, and Abby stabs through his hand, and you see that white glove start to be covered in blood and him squealing and screaming. And what's so great is McDormand's has that fear, and then all of a sudden shots fire, and there's these bullet holes through the wall, and you can see the bright lights in the bathroom where Visser is shooting through these holes into this dark room. It's smoky, it's beautifully shot, it's so well rendered. The tension is building, and she gets out and she shoots him through the wall, and she finally tells off Marty. And what is so amazing about this scene is the dialogue that comes from Visser when he says, "I'll tell him when I see him." And that moment that Abby realizes that it wasn't Marty that was doing all of this, and the audience, we've known this whole time. And then that cackling laugh, just scary laugh from Visser, who's lying there dying. Walsh doing such a great performance. And the song, the music. So Carter Burwell, who has been doing Coen Brothers music for so long and from the very beginning, and perfect. His music for this sounds like there's little themes that sound like future Coen Brothers scores. He does such a great job building that tension, but there's one song in this film which really hits close to home for me, particularly because I'm a huge fan of like Motown and that kind of music, and I love the Four Tops so much. And it's the same old song is used a couple of times through the film. I was rewatching this with my girlfriend. The first time they played at the bar earlier in the film, like I had to say, I'm like, I just love how they use this song in this film. She's like, okay. I'm like, just you wait. Then they use it a second time. She's like, oh, because that's when Ray is trying to get Marty's body out of the bar. And the other guy who works at the bar, who is a fine character too, he comes in, he turns everything on, and you can hear it playing in the background. No, as Visser's looking up at the bottom of this sink and droplets of water come down, and then the Four Tops, it's the same old song starts playing. I'm just like, yes. And it's such a weird and cathartic way to finish this film, because it's like this joyful release that you're no longer in this extremely tense, well-crafted noir thriller. And you can tell that the Coen brothers at the beginning of their career were so ready to just break out with something special. And Blood Simple is such a nice beginning point for them in 1984. And I absolutely love it. And it might not be their most memorable. It might not have the most memorable characters, except for maybe Visser. I still believe that M. Emmett Walsh is one of the best performances in a Coen Brothers film. He is so great, especially in that last scene. He's scary, yet he's funny with that cackling laugh at the end and just that line delivery. But you could see Frances McDormand had a lot of talent and she was going to be a star. And, she was a star through the Coen Brothers. And now she's with 3 Billboards and now Nomadland with this year. She's such a fantastic actress. And it really all starts here. It's so great. And if you haven't seen Blood Simple, go check out this film. This is so fantastic. It is mysterious, it's tense, it's well crafted, and fine performances. It's a great starting place for Coen Brothers. So those are my thoughts on Blood Simple. Now, I'm going to be talking about all the Coen Brothers films. And obviously, some of them I'm going to be probably talking about a little bit longer than I talked about Blood Simple here. This is one of their more simple, and which is funny because I was watching this with my girlfriend and she's like, Blood Simple, more like Blood Complicated. I'm like, to be fair, this film, everything going on in this film is complicated. This isn't like everybody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. And I feel like that's what really makes it special by the end. And you get to the end of this film, just to give a bit of a sense of what's to come, because their next film isn't for 3 years and it's Raising Arizona. So that'll be the next film that I'll be talking about here on Welcome to the Wasteland. Now, I only have a couple of questions here to wrap things up on this episode. So this is probably going to be one of the shorter episodes, but you have the questions that I got here were from friend Kristen, who I've met through Instagram, Miss Flamingo. So go check her out. Go check out her Instagram. She's on Mac Movies Podcast, and I'm going to be on there too soon too. So you should definitely check out her Instagram at least get a starting point for all of her reviews. But she asked 2 questions. So we have this question: what's your most anticipated film of 2021? And there's so many things that are supposed to come out. Don't know what actually is going to be coming out because, with COVID and things getting pushed back. This might be a strange pick, but I have been fixated on The Green Knight, this new Lowry film from A24, starring Dev Patel, who as Sir Gawain, who tries to find and defeat the great Green Knight. And it's based off of that old Arthur lore. And I've been chomping at the bit ever since I saw that trailer. It looks majestic and terrifying and beautiful. And I remember the one shot of this giant hand coming over the side of a mountain, and you see the Green Knight at the end of the trailer, and I believe it's Ralph Ineson who's going to be playing the Green Knight. I'm just like, what is this movie? And if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to be coming out in July 2021 now. So please, I'm really hoping that I get to see it. I'm so excited for The Green Knight. Obviously, there's a lot of other films coming out this year that I'm super excited about. But for some reason, that's the thing that keeps sticking in my head. I see that trailer. I haven't watched the trailer in probably close to a year, but I still remember it and I'm still excited about it. That's a great trailer. And the other question was, what's your most anticipated sequel? No Time to Die. 100%. I have been watching James Bond films since I was a kid. And November is my birthday month. Used to be Bond month too. Watched it on like Spike, all the Bond films that would come on. And I was like 9-year-old Shane sitting there watching all of his James Bond movies. Probably shouldn't have been watching all those James Bond movies at 8 or 9 years old, but you know what? I did. And I remember, like, I have my giant DVD and Blu-ray collection over here, my movie collection. I used to have a VHS collection, and I remember having almost all the Bond films there. And I have the special set where it's all the first 24 James Bond films on Blu-ray in 3 white cases. And I can't wait. I can't wait anymore, and I'm really hoping that this one delivers. I'm excited to see Rami Malek as the villain in this. I'm just excited for Bond again because it's been way too long. It has been a while. I think it was 2015 that Spectre came out, and Spectre was definitely a disappointment, especially after Skyfall, which is, in my opinion, the best James Bond film. I love Skyfall. And Spectre was like, eh. And now I'm like, please deliver with No Time to Die. It's the last Daniel Craig one we're probably going to get. I'm like 100% sure he's not going to pop up in any more James Bond movies. So I'm excited to see that. I keeps getting pushed back, and it should, because they should wait until everybody could go see that in the theater. So I appreciate that they keep pushing it back, but I cannot wait for that. I think it's coming out now in like October of 2021. So I'm definitely excited for that film. But so yeah, those are the films that I'm most anticipating for 2021, and I'm so excited for them. And they're so very, very different, which is funny. And there's a lot of other films. Like, I really can't wait for The French Dispatch. Huge Wes Anderson fan. Was a one and Last Night in Soho, the new Edgar Wright film. That's exciting. Can't wait to see a Marvel movie again in a theater with like Black Widow. And honestly, I'm just getting more and more excited for Black Widow because I'm like, I just want to see a Marvel movie. Thank God for WandaVision has been piquing my excitement for that. But Eternals looks really interesting and different, so I'm excited for that one. And just trying to think of like all the other films that, like, the new Halloween looks like it's nuts. Dune, when Dune comes out, I'm gonna be so excited for that. And that's definitely, like, Denis Villeneuve is one of the best filmmakers out there today. So I'm so excited about that one. Just so many things to be excited about as a film fan. But those are my answers to those questions. How about you comment below on what's your most anticipated film? What's your most anticipated sequel? Comment right below. And you know what? That's all we have for this week in Welcome to the Wasteland. This one's a bit of a quick and short to the point little show. And I hope you tune in next time and talk about Raising Arizona. And if you're interested in joining the show and talking about coming attractions, the movie of the week, and also answering some questions, just let me know. Comment below. Find me on Instagram, The Wasteland Reviewer. But thank you all, as always, for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.